I was born in 1924, February 1924. Next month, I'll be 92 years old, February 15th. And I had a scholarship to college, but I had no money. I graduated from high school in 1941. I was 17 years old. I had no money. And I was working in a steel mill, Crucible Steel in Newark, New Jersey, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, putting away money so I could buy books and have housing and go to school without having to work. So I went down to Rider College in Trenton, New Jersey in the summer of 1941, and I postponed entrance into college till the spring semester of 1942. And on December 7th, 1941, my country was attacked by the Japanese. And I was only 17 years old. But on that day, I made up my mind I was going to fly fighter planes against the Japanese because they attacked my country. I had made every single model of every airplane that was flown in World War I. Flying models, scale models. I knew all the aces, the Rickenbackers, the Folks, the Germans, the Canadians. I knew them by heart. So I went to the Armory in Newark, New Jersey, and I said I'd like to have an application to become a pilot. And the guy said to me, well, how old are you? I said, 17. He said, you have to wait till you're 18. Have you got college? I said, no, I don't have any college. Well, you have to have 2 years of college or be smart enough to pass an examination, a mental examination, as if you had 2 years of college. So I took the papers, and on my 18th birthday, February 15th, 1942, reluctantly, under little pressure from me to my mother and father, they signed the paper, and I entered into a program in the Army Air Corps to become an aviation cadet. I took the mental exam, I passed it, but I flunked the physical exam. I had 20/30 vision in one eye. You had to have 20/20 vision. And the doctor who knew my mother told me, go home and stay in a dark room, eat a lot of carrots, don't read anything, and come back in 3 days and take the test again, the eye test. When I got home, I asked my mother if she would bring me a copy of the eye chart. She had the eye chart, and as a member of the eye, of the draft board. So she brought me the eye chart, and I memorized the chart, and I passed the exam. And I entered the service in August of 1942 as an aviation cadet in waiting. I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for 6 weeks of training, how to put a uniform on, how to march, how to drill, how to salute. And let me tell you something for those who have not been in the military. When you put a uniform on, even if you're a fireman or a policeman, but when you put that uniform on, you understand that your buddies are willing to give their lives to protect you, and you are willing to give your life to protect them. And life becomes all about you, nothing about me. You know that if you're in a drill on a Sunday, if you're out of step, the whole platoon or the whole group is going to be punished. So you become the best that you can become. I went to Classification Center in October of 1942 in Nashville, Tennessee, to take all of the psychological tests, all the physical tests, all of the mental exams again to see what you're qualified to do, because you can become a pilot, you can become a bombardier, you can become a navigator. That's what you went to classification for, to see what it is that you're going to be qualified. I qualified for all three. Could have done any of them. I chose I wanted to be a pilot. Now, you didn't know if you were going to be a single-engine pilot or a transport pilot or a bomber pilot. So I went to pre-flight training in Santa Ana, California, and then I was shipped to Phoenix, Arizona, to Thunderbird Field, where they had a steerman. And they assign the cadets like everything else that they do in the military. They start with the letter A, and they pick 5 cadets, and then B and C. And when they got down to me, there was a Y and 2 C's. Every cadet in the class of 43H had 5 cadets to an instructor. We had 3 cadets to the instructor, so I got my 4 hours time first. And I was the first one to solo at Luke Field. I thought I was the best pilot, but that wasn't the. Later I figured out what really happened. Now, if you took off in that Stearman, 250 horsepower Stearman, and you landed it, you ground loop. Ground loop is when you lose the tail and just ground loop. It's a washout. I made a perfect landing, and my airplane grounded. And I'm saying, oh shit, you know, I'm gone. But my instructor saw the band, the strap that held the tail wheel in a fixed position break when I landed. So it was a mechanical thing, not me, and I didn't wash out. But I had 4 hours and change in a Stearman. Mind you, I graduated, well, I went then to Tucson, Arizona. We started with a 250 horsepower engine, then a 450 horsepower enclosed airplane with fixed landing gear called the multi-vibrator. And then I came back from Luke Field in Phoenix, Arizona, and I had 10 hours in a P-40. We got $250 chits. We went to Goldwater's, which is Barry Goldwater's family. Our uniforms were ordered, and I took the final 6-4, which was the number of the examination, and I flunked the eye test. I had 20/30 vision still in one eye. They changed the eye chart. And the Chinese doctor said to me, Major League, he said, Yellin, you've come so far. We're going to put you, graduate with your class, 43H, get your wings, get your lieutenant bars, but you're going to fly transports. I said, sir, I'm a fighter pilot. He said, not if I have anything to say about it. Who can change that? He said, the Commandant of Cadets. Who's he? Colonel so-and-so. How do you get to see him? You go through a chain of command. What does that mean? Ask me first. So, sir, I want to see the Commandant of Cadets. Chicken colonel, full colonel. Must have been 12 feet tall, and I'm standing in front of him. 19 years old. And he said, what can I do for you, Yellin? I said, sir, I have 10 hours in a fighter plane at a P-40, and they want to put me in a transports, but I'm a fighter pilot. He said, anybody who had the guts to come to see me, you're a fighter pilot. So I graduated with my class, and the 28 guys, the last 28 guys from R through Z were shipped to the 78th Fighter Squadron in Haleiwa in Hawaii to get 50 hours in a P-40, 50 hours more, and then be shipped to another squadron. But I don't know if all of you know about the Tuskegee Airmen. How many people here know about the Tuskegee Airmen? Well, these were guys who fought hard to get into the service of their country. They were black. Tuskegee University was a black university in Alabama. Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife, interceded, and the black pilots graduated from flying school. They had to be 3 times as good just to be accepted as even, and they were. They had 28 guys. There were 27 guys beside me, and those 27 guys roomed with other fighter pilots. But I was Jewish, and I had to be 3 times as good just to be even. I didn't know that. And I roomed with Marvin Kern, who was the intelligence guy for the 78th Fighter Squadron. I wasn't good enough, but I became good enough. 78th Fighter Squadron flew P-40s, and then we got P-47s, and we were ready to go into combat in the Philippines, just before the invasion of the Philippines in Truk. And Mark Michener was an admiral in the United States Navy, had 3 carriers, and in 1 month they shot down 1,200 Japanese airplanes, and General MacArthur just said, well, we're going to just bypass Truk and go directly to the Philippines. So our combat mission, everything was ready. We were ready to go. We had a big party. Was called off, and we were just completely disjointed. 35 pilots, 36 pilots. We were crazy. What saved us was we got P-51s. Now, P-47 was a great airplane, but when you're flying it, it was like flying an elephant. Hard on the control, really hard to fly, really difficult. Had a lot of things that you could go wrong with the P-47. With the P-51, it was like flying a gazelle, just with your fingertips, just instant response. I mean, it was the best airplane ever built. In December of 1944, we flew our planes to Ford Island in the middle of Pearl Harbor. The planes were loaded onto a Jeep carrier, which is a small aircraft carrier called the Citgo Bay, airplanes down below, underneath the deck, airplanes stacked on the deck, and we left alone. First week in January of 1945, we left alone for a 1,600-mile trip to Guam. About 3 days out to sea, we were called into a briefing room, big room like this, with a relief map of a small island called Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was 8 square miles of land, no water, no running water, no electricity, nothing, 700 miles from the coast of Japan. And the Marines were scheduled to take 8 square miles of land so that we as fighter pilots could fly 8-hour missions escorting B-29s, which began bombing Japan from the Marshall Islands, Mariana Islands, from Guam, Saipan, and Tinian in November of 1944. 1,500-mile round trip for them, 10, 12, 14, 15 hours of flying time. And they were getting clobbered. So the military decided we needed a base for fighter planes, and we need a base for emergency landings for B-29s. On February 19, 1945, 67,000 Marines landed on Iwo Jima, which was defended by 23,000 Japanese, 90,000 soldiers fighting on 8 square miles of land. When that battle ended, there were 28,000 bodies laying around Iwo Jima. 21,000 Japanese were killed, 7,000 American Marines were killed, 21,000 Marines were wounded on Iwo Jima. There were 27 Medals of Honor given to the Marines. The last Medal of Honor living from that battle on Iwo Jima is a guy by the name of Woody Williams. And PBS this past year broadcast a documentary, I think it's streaming live on public broadcasting, called Iwo Jima, From Combat to Comrades. 3 Americans, I'm one of the Americans in that video, and a Japanese survivor is in that video. I flew 19 8-hour missions over Japan in a P-51, 8 hours at a clip in a small airplane. I flew with 16 guys who were killed, aged 19 to 26. And on August 14th, on August 6th, I was strafing airfields near Tokyo. When I landed on Iwo Jima, a guy jumped on my wing, Phil Marr jumped on my wing. He said, "We dropped 1 bomb, wiped out a city." I said, "What are you smoking? I want some." It was true. An atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima on August 6th. Another one on the 9th on Nagasaki. We thought the war was over. It's all over. But it wasn't. We were called to a briefing on August 14th, August 13th. And we were told we were going to fly another mission on the 14th of August. And somebody asked Jim Tapp, our CEO, why? Why are we flying another mission? And Tapp said, well, they're negotiating through Sweden and nobody's paying any attention and we have to go up there and keep them honest. But we're going to broadcast the code word Ohio. We've got B-17s in the air. We've got PBYs in the air, scheduled to be in the air tomorrow morning. We've got destroyers on the deck of the ocean, on the sea, and submarines, all tuned into the same as our D channel. We had 5 radio channels, A, B, C, D, and E, in our airplane. Radio tubes, which when we were flying aerobatics and flying combat, when you're going from high altitude down, you blow a couple tubes. We really couldn't navigate. We flew up there on the wing of a B-29. I don't know how many of you know about flying on the beam. Used to be a beam. You had an A quadrant and a D quadrant, and an N quadrant, and an A quadrant, and an N quadrant, like a cross. And the A is da-da, and the N is da-did in the Morse code, and when you're on the beam, you hear a solid sound in your ears, and you know you're flying in the direction on the chart that's taking you from one city to another city. Well, they broadcast an Uncle Dog, a U and a D. Da-da-da is U, and da-da-dit is D, and you could hear a solid sound when the U and the D came together. you heard a solid sound, so you could follow a B-29 30, 40 miles behind it, because you could not navigate a P-51, period. When we were told that we were going to fly another mission, a 19-year-old guy by the name of Phil Stromberg was assigned to my wing. And he leaned over to me and he said, "Captain, if we go on that mission, I'm not coming back." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "It's a feeling I have." Not the first guy that knew he was going to die in our squadron. When you do something well, extremely well, it's called being in the zone. The better guys of quarterback are in the zone. They're got 10 guys protecting them, 8 guys protecting them, guys are going out. They hear the footsteps before they see the guys coming. They have a feeling. And that quarterback is in the zone. That's what fighter pilots were. They were in the zone. You become the airplane. Those who flew mechanically had a greater chance of being killed because if they needed to do something, they were thinking about what they had to do. Give it throttle, give it rudder, climb, dive, make a move. That thought process was bad. And it's bad in athletics. It's bad for quarterbacks. It's bad for fighter pilots. Schlomberg said, I just have a feeling I'm not coming back. I went to Jim Tapp, our CEO, told him what Schlomberg told me. And he said, if Schlomberg agrees to see Doc Lewis, our flight surgeon, Lewis can get him off. But he has to agree. You can't, Jerry, you can't make the appointment. I told that to Phil. He said, no, I'll go. On the morning of August 14th, I briefed him, told him to stay close on my wing. Stay on my wing, don't get off. We're going to broadcast a code word, Ohio. We'll never make it to Japan. We got to the point near Japan where we had to drop our external wing tanks. Nobody had heard the code word Ohio. So we dropped our wing tanks and we went in strafing airfields around Tokyo, getting shot at, strafing airfields. We needed 90 gallons of fuel to get back to Iwo Jima. We could cut our fuel consumption back to 18 to 20 gallons an hour. So we needed 90 gallons an hour of fuel to get back to Iwo Jima. Somebody in your squadron called 90 gallons, the whole squadron would head out to a B-29 to go back. Somebody called 90 gallons from our squadron, the 78, the Bushmasters. I was leading a flight. I started to turn towards the B-29. Phil Schlomberg was on my wing. I gave him a thumbs up. I pulled up to go through some clouds. When I came out of the clouds, Schlomberg was gone. Nobody heard him. Nobody saw anything. When we landed on Iwo Jima, we found out that the war had been over for 3 hours while we were fighting. Literally had been over for 3 hours. And Phil Schlomberg was the last man killed in World War II in combat off of my wing. He was 19 years old. I met his family many years later. He had an older brother, a younger brother, Michael. Michael had a daughter, Melanie. Melanie married a Dutch architect by the name of Johansson. And Scarlett Johansson, the movie actress, is the great niece of the last guy killed in World War II. Now, I came home and I was a basket case. I was literally a basket case. I had a scholarship to college. I went to the school. I said, we can't take you. Why? Because you don't have 1 day of school. We have to take back with the GI Bill everybody who wants to go to college, and you're last on the list because you don't have 1 day of school. I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't hold a job. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was a pretty good golfer. So I started to gamble on a golf course. In 1949, on March, Good Friday, 1949, I went on a blind date in Brooklyn, New York, and I met a young woman by the name of Helene Schulman. I called off my game on Sunday. We became engaged on Memorial Day, and we got married. She 19, me 25, on October 22nd, 1949. She couldn't have children, so our firstborn was born in November of 1950. And our fourth son was born in August 16th, 1960, our fourth son. She passed away in June this year at the age of 85 after 65 years of marriage. She thought I was going to work, but I was going to the golf course. And I never played golf for pleasure. I was a scratch golfer. I was a good golfer, but I played in combat. I played to kill the golf course and to kill the guys I was playing against. And then in 1975, Helene saw Maharishi Mahesh Yogi on Merv Griffin's television show talking about transcendental meditation. And she learned TM, and 3 months later, or 2 months later, in August or September of 1945, I learned transcendental meditation and I became a human being. 30 years after the end of the war, I suffered for 30 years of what anybody who goes into combat suffers from. When you put the uniform on, you learn about you, and you learn to use a weapon to kill other human beings. The pure purpose of war is to kill your enemy. And you learn how to kill, whether it's with an airplane. My airplane wasn't an airplane to fly. It was 650 caliber machine guns that I could take to the enemy. You learn to use a rifle. You learn to use a tank. You learn a ship. You learn how to kill. And once you've learned that, and once you've done that, there's no untraining. It's there forever. I still smell and hear and see the sights that I saw on Iwo Jima. Now, I know that Pete is involved with yoga a lot. It's wonderful. Anything that you can do for the moments that you get to escape the memories, but I talked to 16 guys for 30 years. Didn't try suicide, but I thought about it a lot. I couldn't stand by the window without thinking about jumping out the window. I couldn't drive my car by a railroad track and say, I'm gonna just park the car. That's what happens when you go into combat. We're losing 22 guys a day. I started Operation Warrior Wellness 5 years ago, 6 years ago with the David Lynch Foundation. But the David Lynch Foundation is not a transparent organization. So this last week, the Vietnam vet, Chief Sergeant Major, an Iraqi vet, and I are opening up a new nonprofit called Operation Warrior Shield. And we want to teach TM, we want to take care of the homeless, we want to take care of the people looking for jobs who are veterans, and to stop the 22 suicides that happen, known happen, every day. And we're going to do that. So that's a little bit of my story. Pete wanted me to talk about it, 30 minutes. I've got my 30 minutes of fame open. I'll go anywhere in the world to talk about helping veterans. They and we live in a country now that's all about me. It's not about you, except for the guys in uniform. We're brothers. I'm his brother. I'm your brother. I'm your brother. I've been there. I've done that. I'm 92 years old. I'm in the prime of life. I live my life like the banker talks about my banking account. Yesterday's a canceled check. Today's money in the bank. And tomorrow's a promissory note. All that we know that we have is the time right now. Right now. Tomorrow's a promissory note. And if we don't do something now, then it's our fault that these guys are committing suicide. Any questions? Thanks a lot.